this, make sure to smash that like button. All right, so after we remove shine from the surface of the nail, what I'm going to do is use swipe and just kind of clean it off. And this is going to set us up so that we have protein bond application. Remember, for those of you guys that just joined, make sure to smash that like button. How's it going, Trace? Flowing?
Yep, we're good.
All right, good.
Has the formula changed on the protein bond, G?
Nope. Someone just asked if, someone just said, has the formula changed on the protein bond? Nope, and never will. It is the ultimate bonder. There is nothing in the industry that even compares or is even close. If you guys want the greatest adhesion of all time, this is the greatest non-acid adhesion there is. If there is, we've definitely made some packaging improvements over the past few years, but the formula has never changed. All right. So what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to get our form, and we want to be able to place it here. This is going to give us the ability to create a handle. And with this handle, what you're going to be able to do is use the arms of the form to get it underneath. And you can see that I'm going to be able to use my hands to just literally like swivel it up. For those of you guys that struggle with this, what you can do also is take the handle and you can just come in and make sure the form is going to be dead straight before securing it to the side. Once you're done doing that, what we want to be able to do is get a consistency that's going to be easy to work with. So I want to submerge my brush. I want to be able to come in. I want to, oops, I left my glasses downstairs. No problem. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's all good. I'm going to take my brush and notice that when I bounce inside the powder, I'm going to get a nice bead on one side. I'm going to remove excess liquid by draining it on the back side. Now, what this is going to do, it's going to allow me to set the bead onto the form where it doesn't run. So from the top of the bead, look at this, from the top of the bead, I'm going to walk it, and I'm walking it up towards the corner, right? I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side, walking it from the top of the bead as I'm walking it up and towards the corner. So once I have it connected, then what I'm going to do is constantly work back and forth. And then I can pull the shape, right? And then I could use the body of the form to constantly walk over the surface to create a structure that's going to be even from both sides. Then I could use the base of my brush to square this off, right? So this is what we're going to do to create a really even structure on the free edge. And you can notice from the side profile how flush this is on the side. For those of you guys that just joined us, make sure to smash that like button. Okay, so what we want to be able to do now, notice from the side profile, right? When I am setting my product down, take a look at the angle. My brush is straight, and if my finger is pointed down towards the towel, I'm able to create, again, a downward ramp that's going to self-level gently into the cuticle area. If I submerge my brush, lightly tap my monomer on the side of the dish at a 45-degree angle, pull down, bounce, 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 I'm going to get myself a nice bead on one side of the brush. Let me show you guys again. Submerge, get this thing loaded up. I'm going to pull down, bounce, 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 get myself a nice bead. I'm going to wait. 2, 3, 4, release. Use the tip of the brush to walk around the perimeter of the nail as the bead slowly moves down towards the stress area. Once it gets past the stress area from the corner and the front of the bead, I'm going to start moving the product and blending it into the tip. You can see from the side profile how everything is contouring to this shape, right? I'm feathering from the front end. But notice that once I'm done kind of brushing this through, I'm also brushing it through onto the towel. But you can see from the side profile the natural arch that it creates, right? And I don't have a gigantic ledge that surrounds the perimeter of the nail, okay? All right, so what we need to do is we need to fill this front end in. And how we're going to be able to kind of fill in that negative space is by submersing our brush. I'm going to do the same thing. Come in at a 45-degree angle, bounce, bounce, bounce. I could just lightly tap. And then what I want to be able to do is set my brush backwards in between the bead I set down and the free edge I built. Watch this. Feather it back. Whatever I have there, I could use the body of the brush, and I don't have to do anything but walk over, literally walk over the bead and blend it from side to side. And then as I am doing this, I'm going to be able to kind of bring the product down over the tip, filling in any space there is. I'm not brushing anything forward. All I'm doing is walking it over the top from side to side to fill in any space. And you'll even notice if I decide to brush back, right, all the space that has been filled, and you're going to notice, right, look at this. Right, I have a beautiful shape that's built out. My extension is formed from the end of the growth channel all the way out. I'm going to be able to file this into perfection in the least amount of effort.
While you have it like that,
yep.
Where's the apex located?
So my apex, someone's like, where's my apex located? My apex is going to be right through here, right through here, right?
And someone's asking, how do I not get runny beads?
So someone's asking how not to get runny beads. Well, I don't know what product you're working with, but if you're working with young nails, let me show you how not to get it with young nails. Okay, so for those of you guys that struggle with the product running too much, it's probably because you're doing this. If I go into my monomer and I pick up a bead just like this, and I go straight to the nail and I release, watch what ends up happening if I start touching it. Do you see how fast it's moving? Watch how fast everything moves. And again, I'm holding the finger down at this angle, but watch what ends up happening, right? And again, I'm holding it at this angle, but you can see how everything moves like really, really fast. Okay, now, again, I was able to kind of semi-control that. Watch what happens if you don't have the experience and you hold the finger flat, which most beginners do. Let's say you pick up a bead, right? And then you set it down flat like this, and then you brush it. Watch what ends up happening if you don't understand how to hold the finger. Look what happens. Everything runs towards the cuticle area and ends up flooding the whole entire area. Remember, those of you guys who just jumped on, make sure to smash that like button. So what you want to be able to do if you work with young nails is do this. Let me show you guys something really cool. If you hold the finger kind of at an angle down towards the towel, if you load your brush with a lot of liquid, and before we set it to the nail, remember, you are working on a surface, and again, the natural nail is not convex, but remember, you're working on a surface that is convex, right? The natural nail is convex in shape. If it's super wet, if you're working with a super wet bead and you set it to the nail, watch what ends up happening. Watch how fast this ends up running. That's a problem, okay? That's a big problem. If you submerge the brush, and again, you're able to pick this up, watch what happens if you just wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you set this down. Look at the difference. Slow roll. Slow, self-leveling roll. Okay.
How do you keep your brush clean?
Keep my brush clean by constantly wiping, and then after I'm done, I submerge it inside here, and I use a towel like this to pull off any excess liquid or dry particles from my brush. All right, so,
Question.
yep, last question. How?
This person's asked a couple times. How do you carve in a smile line in a traditional form with white?
How do you carve in a smile line traditional form with white? Takes a lot of practice. I can show you how to do it. But why? My question to you is, why waste your time? I'll show you how to do it, but why waste your time? If you're trying to build a smile line by carving it in traditionally, it takes forever, right? So going back to the individual who struggled with running, let me show you guys. If you submerge your brush and you're able to pick up a nice healthy bead, watch this, by just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and then releasing slowly, watch this. I could walk around the perimeter of the nail, and I just want to show you something. If I just kind of held the side, look how long it takes. Literally, it doesn't like This end ends up self-leveling to perfection, but it doesn't run. This is how you're going to be able to control it. Now, for the individual out there who wanted to know how to sculpt a smile line with white,
what color are you using?
I'm using cover pink. Someone asked what color I'm using cover pink. For those of you that are looking to do smile lines with white, the key is you have to, again, get yourself a nice bead. You have to be able to set this down, and then you have to be able to walk it from, again, this point, from the front by pushing up towards the edge. And this is the crazy thing, right? As much as I'm trying to push this up to the corner, right, I need to spin my brush, and I have to be able to get it into a position where I'm actually able to swivel. Look at this. I'm actually swiveling my brush to carve out my smile line. And then once it's actually swiveled into place, I have to be able to use the body to walk back up, right? So it's not just pushing it into proper position. It's getting the tip of your brush and then carving your smile line in this way, right? And again, the amount of time it takes me to sit here and cut my smile lines or shape my smile lines like this, that is a total waste of time. Total waste of time. Because it doesn't matter how good you are at shaping your smile lines like this. If you have too dark of a pink, watch what ends up happening as I pull it over my smile. I just want to be able to show you something. You get what we call a shadow, right? So even though I'm actually able to pack in pink up to that smile line that I carved in, right? The biggest problem is if you have areas that are lower than others, the pink will shadow your white in many, many different forms. What you have to be able to do is you have to be able to work in reverse. And the only way to work in reverse is understanding how to work with the proper, again, consistency. If you submerge your brush and you're able to get yourself a nice bead, and then again, you're able to set this down. Watch this. If I, again, walk around the perimeter and I have great self-leveling nature, if I lightly touch, watch this, if I lightly touch my smile line in the center, right, I can create a teardrop that's going to move heavy towards the middle. And then I could do is I could take the wedge of my brush, and then what I can do is I can carve in my smile line backwards, right? I can carve in my smile line backwards, and then what you're going to be able to create is the ultimate, basically, reverse wall, as you can see, built all the way out. And then if I was to get my white, this is the best part about this. If I was just to wipe this off, right, and wash this with a very, very like wet consistency, I could almost treat acrylic like gel and just walk it right up to the edges if I was doing an overlay. You don't even have to overbuild this. Now, once I actually have the white onto the side, if I gave that a second to actually set, which again is great. Oops. Once I actually, you can see, I just want to be able to show you, this pops off the finger, but you're going to see like this whole area right inside here. Once I file that away, you're going to have, it's almost going to look like a razor blade. You're going to have zero shadows. And that's what you have to be able to do.
The person that was asking about keeping the brush clean, their problem is it's sticky while they're trying to apply it.
Okay, so like for the Tracy said, the individual who's running into problems with keeping your brush clean, the problem I see is you're having problems picking up the acrylic. If it's sticking to your brush, that just tells me you're either working with the product too wet and you're not cleaning your brush in between application. You're going to notice if I submerge my brush and I'm actually able to pick this up, right? Watch this. If I release the product from my brush, do you notice like there's barely anything on here? And if I wipe my brush, there's nothing. And then you're going to notice if I am working with the product, look at this. As I'm working with the product, even if I'm pulling through the product, right? Look at this. Take a look at my brush. I have nothing on it, right? That's because I have a consistency where it's not going to stick to my brush. If I'm feathering this through, or if I'm working this through the body, there's zero acrylic sticking to my brush. So you're either working with it too wet and it's jamming in your brush, right? And you're not cleaning it during your application, which is a big, big problem.
If they do accidentally get acrylic dried in the
Yep.
brush,
Tracy
then
says
can
if,
they clean it?
yeah, so Tracy said, what happens if you get acrylic that's like, let's just say you get acrylic that's jammed up in your brush like this. How do you get that out? Well, and it's dry, like it's really, really firm and dry. What you can do is, can you pass me the acetone right there? There you go. So there's liquid inside this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. We're going to take acetone. This is onto the next nail polish, acetone nail polish remover. I'm going to pour in, again, like a little 50-50 blend in the monomer, and I'm just going to rest my brush inside this mix. You don't need to sit it in pure acetone. If you set it in pure acetone, then your brush is going to look like this. We don't want your brush to look like this. All right, so you want the hairs to stay on the brush, okay? And again, I'm not saying it's going to just fall out, but it's literally, you don't want that to happen. All right, so here, what we're going to be able to do, I'm now, after like letting my brush sit inside, then what I would do is gently, as the acetone starts to break down that dry acrylic, you can start to work it off of your brush. Keep it inside the solution long enough where you're able to push out a majority of the acrylic outside your brush. Continue to spin it to get it to a nice point, and then you should be good. Remember, for those of you guys that just joined us, make sure to smash that like button.
What size brush is that?
What size brush do I work with? I work with the number 12. This is my signature series brush.
The jar that you're working with right now, G, how many ounces?
This is 45 grams, so this is just under 2 ounces.
And then we've had several people that are struggling with forms.
Several people struggling with forms. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over form application. Let's just say you are working on yourself, right? Again, so my hands are, I have man hands and my fingers are wide but I try to keep my nails in at least decent condition. But you can see I have very, very square free edges right here, and I have basically no room to apply. So the biggest problem that a lot of beginners have is they try to get their forms all the way to their corners. I do not want you to focus on getting your forms to the corners. Where I want you to focus on is right here, right there. The very, very front edge of the nail, okay? So what we're going to do is you're going to get your form. You're going to place this below. You're going to create a handle just like this, and then you're going to open this up, okay? Now, for those of you guys that are applying this to the surface, what I recommend doing is this. Focus on getting the form tight, like I told you, right there to the very, very front. Do not worry about the corners. Okay, now if you have wider nail beds, what ends up happening, there's a tendency sometimes for this area, you can see this part of the form, you can see that little bit of space that I have right there, right? So the problem we have is there's space right there, okay? So a lot of people, what they try to do is they try to tuck it underneath the corner. You don't need to do that. That is, what ends up happening is it usually caves in the sides right here and creates a problem. What I'd like you to do that will make this really easy, especially when you're working on a form like this, if I have wide fingers, then what we can do is we can simply take our scissors and we could just clip off the edges. Boom, just like this. Hold on. Sorry. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a square. There's two ways of creating square. This is what I'm going to use on my finger. The other way is actually by taking it, so if someone has smaller fingers, all you would do is clip this off, and then you would place it underneath just like this. So two of the same, this will create a very, very square free edge. This would be great for maybe smaller hands, but in my case, because I have wider skin right here, what I need to do is I need to widen that out. So what you can do is you can create that handle, you can open this up. This is going to create a real flat surface. Now watch this. All I'm going to do is just get that form right there, just a touch underneath, right? You're gonna go, okay, well, how do you secure it? Well, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna get my sides. Look at this. You see how it's touching right there in the front? And I'm gonna be able to secure the form, right? But here's the best part. I want you guys to see this. Do you notice that there's no hitch? Like you don't see any space. Like you don't see any space going over the skin. So if I'm looking down the barrel of the nail right here, I will be able to build an extension that's going to come flat onto the form. Don't worry about the skin. The skin will act like a form. The biggest struggle that a lot of beginners have is they're afraid to do this because they feel like if there's any exposure, it's going to create a problem where it's not. You're going to have what we call a smooth extension that's going to run out onto the form. The key is to have the form tight to the edge. Now, again, this is...
Explain why you have the form fitting that way versus how you typically would, because like someone's saying, well, that's not how a form is supposed to fit.
That is...
But you're doing it for a reason.
Yeah, I'm doing it for a reason because my fingers are wide. My fingers are wide. I have wide fingers right here. And square nail beds. And so this will also work. And for the individual out there that says that's not how they're supposed to fit, then how are they supposed to fit? Because what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to get the form flush, right? You don't want it at an angle and you don't want space. So I want to be able to show you something. If I have this on my finger tight, just like this, right? Again, flush to the nail, I still will be able to build, and I want to be able to show you something. Right, a lot of times when an individual is building a free edge, like I want to be able to show you, if I get a piece of acrylic onto my nail right here, this is like, what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to work the product down. Look at this. So if I'm working it down to the corner and then I want to be able to tuck it right here to that corner, I want to show you something. Okay, so you see how the extension comes from the end of the growth channel straight out? Do you see how flat? I want to be able to show you something, just this side right here. But do you see how flat? The extension is going to build out onto the form, completely flat on the nail, not raised, not a bump, not a hitch, a tight, smooth extension all the way out. So if the form is not flush to the nail, you're never going to get that. You don't want space, but you have to remember that in most cases, you want the form tight here, and then everything else will fall into place.
Do you typically want product to touch the skin?
No, you don't. You don't want product to touch the skin. And again, it's like when you're working, you want to try to keep monomer off of the cuticle area and you want to try to keep it off the skin as much as you can. During application, if it has a tendency to touch one part of the skin once for 1, maybe 2 seconds every month, it's not going to be a big deal. You don't want to take your brush and constantly flood the skin or the cuticles. And I think that's the biggest problem with people using like mega brushes, is they have a tendency to kind of flood the skin and work all over the place. But getting into certain areas, especially like you have to remember, like if you're working with someone who has wide fingers, like a thumb, for example, you're not going to be able to get a normal form on because it's not going to fit. You either have to work with a wide form, an extra large form. You're going to notice, like if I was going to take a regular form and I try to get this onto my thumb, watch what happens. Like I can't I can't get this where it's not going to fit. I have space. Like even if I try to get into this area right here, there's going to be space right there in the corner. That's a problem, right? So what you have to be able to do, and I used to be able to show this to a lot of beginners when they were working, is you have to be able to, again, create a custom scenario, right? So if you were to take, say, two forms, especially for those of you, for those of you guys out there that don't have the extended nail forms, right? Sorry, let me just grab this. So if I was to take two sides of a form and I put this together, boom, right, to make a little bit wider, and then I went ahead and clipped this, right, to try to get this as tight as I can, right? So you're going to notice in this position, if I was to come through, create a handle, I now have something much wider. Oops, hold on for 1 second. Let me just do this. It always is good to get this piece underneath so that you have a little bit of stability right there. All right, there we go. So if I open this up, again, trying to create as flat of a surface as I possibly can, boom. So now what I'll be able to do is get something that is touching, again, flush, tight, right there, tight. There's no hitch on the growth channel. You don't want to hitch on the growth channel. You need something where you're going to be able to sculpt flush to the natural nail. And then again, even with those growth channels, from that extension going out, you have to have perfect extension going out from the end of the growth channel out onto the form, flush to the front of the nail.
That way you don't end up with a notch.
Correct. You don't want notches in the side, right? Everybody out there that's learning how to do forms, another problem is extended hyponychium. So you have individuals, right, whose skin grows from this point out. What you have to be able to do is you have to be able to cut a V, right? So if I came in and cut a V right here, then the individual, and you can even round off the front end, but somebody who has skin that actually grows with their nail, that will be the perfect fit to someone who has extended hyponychium. Remember, those individuals out there, hit that smash that like button, hit that smash button. Smash that like button. All right. There's so much detail that goes into doing nails, right? The amount, again, that I share with you guys, hopefully it will help. If you guys have any questions, make sure to hit us up here at Young Nails. You can basically email us. You can jump online, www.youngnails.com, or you can go 1-800-777-9170. Appreciate all the support. Remember to smash that like button. Cool. Appreciate you guys. Have a great day. Peace.
Subscribe channel now. Subscribe channel now. Subscribe.